Welcome to a story where beauty is not a blessing, but a curse. During the Second World War, in a small Sicilian town, lived Malena, a breathtakingly beautiful woman. Every man watched her with admiration, while many women looked at her with jealousy and hatred. But no one knew how loneliness, humiliation, and pain were hidden behind her face. From a distance, 12-year-old Renato witnessed how admiration turned into gossip, judgment, and cruelty. Was Malena truly guilty, or was she simply a victim of society's hypocrisy? Today's story will make you think, feel, and stay until the end. So keep watching. Because Malena's story is not only about one woman, it is a mirror of society. Let's begin. The story begins in 1940, just as Italy enters the Second World War. In a small Sicilian town, we meet Renato, a 12-year-old boy whose father has recently bought him a bicycle. Proud of his new freedom, Renato rides through the streets and heads toward his friends. The boys admire the bicycle, but their excitement suddenly changes when one of them whispers that she is coming and tells everyone to sit down. Renato does not understand who they mean until the most beautiful woman in town walks past them. Her name is Malena. The moment Renato sees her, he is completely captivated. He cannot look away, and when she continues down the street, he joins his friends as they follow her on their bicycles. Malena lives a quiet life. Her elderly father is a school teacher who has difficulty hearing, and Renato happens to attend the same school. Malena is married, but her husband spends most of his time away because he serves in the military. Her beauty has made her the center of constant attention. Nearly every man in town wants to be noticed by her, while many of the women resent her and secretly wish they possessed the same confidence and appearance. Malena does nothing to encourage the attention, yet people have already created an entire story about her. At school, Renato can barely concentrate because thoughts of Malena keep returning to his mind. When classes end, he rides to her house and waits across the street, imagining that she steps outside, calls him closer, gives him money, and asks him to buy cigarettes. In reality, he is still sitting alone, lost in fantasy. Wanting to look older, Renato later steals a pair of his father's trousers and takes them to a tailor, asking that they be altered to fit him. When his father discovers what happened, he becomes furious and reminds Renato that he is still young enough to wear short pants. Even though Renato knows Malena is married, his fascination continues to grow. At night, he secretly climbs a tree and peers through a small opening near her window. He follows her during the day and watches from a distance whenever he can. One evening, he sees her listening to music and dancing alone in her room. Malena has no idea anyone is watching. The next day, Renato buys the same recording from a music shop. That night, as he listens to the song, he imagines Malena entering his room. The fantasy makes him happy, but it disappears as quickly as it began. While following Malena through town, Renato starts noticing how other people treat her. Wealthy businessmen, laborers, soldiers, and important officials all stare openly. Their wives rarely confront the men. Instead, they blame Malena for attracting attention and insult her whenever she passes. Malena refuses to argue. She walks quietly, remains loyal to her absent husband, and tries to ignore the gossip surrounding her. She regularly visits her father because he is growing old and needs medicine and care. Renato follows her there as well and watches from hiding, slowly learning that the woman everyone discusses so freely is simply trying to look after her family. One day, military officers and government representatives gather the townspeople and announce the names of local men believed to have died in the war. Malena's husband is among them. Many men react with private excitement because they now see her as an available widow. But Malena is devastated. She loved her husband and suddenly finds herself completely alone. She leaves her own house and moves in with her father. Renato watches from outside as she cries in her room. Some time later, while Malena hangs clothing to dry, Renato secretly steals one of her garments and runs away. That night, he holds it while dreaming about her. The following morning, his father discovers it. He shouts at Renato, while Renato's mother punishes him severely. His parents lock him in his room for 3 days. Renato refuses food, becomes ill, and eventually needs a doctor. After examining him, the doctor says he must eat properly and spend time outdoors. Renato is finally allowed to leave with his bicycle. Outside, he hears women spreading increasingly cruel stories about Malena. They claim she is secretly meeting married men, and several men also repeat insulting rumors. Renato knows that most of these accusations are invented. The gossip soon reaches Malena's father at school. A note is delivered to him accusing his daughter of having relationships with several men in town. Humiliated and enraged, he refuses to listen to her explanation. He rejects her and forces her to leave his home. With nowhere else to go, Malena returns to her own house. One night, Renato climbs the tree again and sees a local officer visiting Malena. The sight deeply upsets him. When the officer leaves, a dentist attacks him in the street. The dentist has also been pursuing Malena. Soon the dentist's wife arrives with the police and accuses Malena of having an affair with her husband. She files a legal complaint, and the scandal spreads across town almost immediately. Exhausted and frightened, Malena asks a prominent attorney to defend her. The lawyer accepts, but his interest is not entirely professional. During the court hearing, he argues that Malena has no relationship with the dentist and that the officer is only a friend. His defense succeeds, and Malena wins the case. Afterward, the lawyer visits Malena at home. She pays his unusually high fee, but he uses her vulnerable position to demand more than money. Renato, watching secretly, realizes that the lawyer is taking advantage of her. In the confusion, Renato falls from the tree and breaks an arm. Malena continues seeing the lawyer because no one else will give her work. Her financial support has disappeared, and he is covering her basic expenses. When the lawyer's mother learns about the relationship, she scolds him for embarrassing their family. Pressured by his family, he abandons Malena. Malena is now completely isolated. No business will employ her, and the pension connected to her husband's military service has stopped. One night, she cuts her hair short and decides that if the town has already condemned her without evidence, she may as well stop trying to satisfy people who will never respect her. The next day, she appears in public with a dramatically different style. The townspeople stare. Men who once pretended to judge her now openly welcome the change. Malena sits at an empty table and places a cigarette between her lips. Several men immediately approach, competing for the chance to light it. In that moment, Malena understands that when she tried to live with dignity, society refused to let her survive. Now the same people are eager to exploit her desperation. With no money and no protection, she begins using their desire to support herself. She leaves with a man and goes to a hotel. Renato watches from a distance and feels helpless. At night, he keeps an eye on Malena's home and sees different visitors arriving. The wives of those men become even more furious, blaming Malena instead of holding their husbands responsible. Her name becomes known throughout the town, and she is sometimes seen in the company of German officers as the occupation changes daily life. Renato is heartbroken. He wants to help her, but he is only a child and has no power, money, or social standing. One day, he sees Malena with 2 German officers and becomes so overwhelmed that he faints. His mother and several older women decide he must be under a supernatural influence. They take him to a priest, hoping religious rituals will free him from what they believe has taken control of him. As the war begins shifting against Germany, resentment inside the town grows more dangerous. Many women believe Malena has damaged their marriages, even though their husbands willingly pursued her. One day, a group of women storms into a hotel where Malena is with a man. They drag her into the street, tear at her clothes, beat her violently, cut her hair, and publicly humiliate her. A crowd gathers, but none of the men who once desired her steps forward to protect her. Renato watches from a distance, horrified and unable to intervene. Malena understands that staying would only expose her to further cruelty. Injured and disgraced, she leaves the town. Several days later, Malena's husband returns. He is alive, although the war has cost him one arm. The townspeople are stunned because they believed he had died. He goes home searching for Malena and discovers that displaced residents have occupied the property after losing their own houses in the fighting. He asks neighbors, officials, and former friends where his wife has gone. No one wants to tell him the truth. Some men insult Malena and describe her behavior while he was away, carefully leaving out their own involvement. Her husband is devastated by what he hears. Renato knows where Malena went and which train she took, but he is afraid to speak directly to her husband. That night, he writes a letter and secretly throws it near the man before running away. In the message, Renato explains that Malena still loves him and has traveled to the city of Messina. Her husband leaves on a train that same night to search for her. A year later, Malena returns to the town beside her husband. As they walk through the familiar streets, people stop and stare. The women notice that Malena is still striking, perhaps even more beautiful than before. But now that she is with her husband, they no longer consider her a threat. They are also surprised by the courage it takes for her to return to the place where she was treated so brutally. Gradually, their language changes, and they begin speaking to her with a respect they never offered when she was alone. At the market, some of the same women who attacked her now greet her politely, calling her madam and wishing her good morning. Malena does not challenge them or demand an apology. She simply answers, "Good morning," and continues shopping. As she leaves, several oranges fall from her bag. Renato quickly approaches and helps gather them. When Malena turns to go, he quietly wishes her good luck. It is one of the only direct exchanges they ever share. Renato rides away on his bicycle and reflects on the years that have passed. As he grows older, he will meet many women and experience different kinds of love. Some will ask whether he will remember them, and he will promise that he will. Yet he already understands that memory does not follow promises. Many faces will fade. The one woman he will never forget is Malena, not simply because she was beautiful, but because he witnessed how a community transformed admiration into cruelty, desire into accusation, and silence into punishment. The film ends with a question about society. Malena was judged long before anyone knew her, and the same people who desired her later blamed her for their own choices. When she needed work, protection, and compassion, the town offered rumors and exploitation. When she returned beside her husband, those same people treated her with respect, proving that their judgment had never been about her character. It was about jealousy, fear, and the social protection they believed a married woman possessed. Renato's final act of helping with the oranges shows how much he has matured. He can no longer see Malena only as the beautiful woman from his childhood fantasies. He now sees someone who survived war, poverty, humiliation, and abandonment without losing her dignity. Do you believe another woman in Malena's situation would be treated the same way by society? Share your opinion in the comments. If you enjoyed this movie recap, like the video, share it with movie lovers, subscribe to the channel today, and press the notification bell so you never miss an upcoming story. We will meet again in the next video. Until then, goodbye, stay safe, and take care.